Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. I have been champing at the bit, which is the correct way to say that expression. It means grinding, for a while for this episode. It is part of our continuing series of crossovers between me and comedian Dave Smith, comic Dave Smith, 1/3 Legion of Skanks, host of Part of the Problem. And you were just recently on Rogan. I have to make a confession. I not only did not watch your Rogan, I haven't even watched my Rogan or my Lex. Like, I am at a point where I don't watch these podcasts, which is not a commentary on you. But what I can tell you is that all of my people at malice.locals.com, on Twitter, they were all completely blown away. They're always fans of yours to begin with, but they're like, you really knocked it out of the park. So kudos for you. I am super impressed that, you know, a lot of times you and I and people who kind of work in the same space we do, there's a lot of hand wringing. What are we going to do? You know, yeah, you spread the ideas of anarchism, blah, 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 blah. But for you to be the guy who is like, look, this vaccine passport crap, if we're not against this, what the F good are we for? And this is a very concrete example of our principles being put up against the wall and we being the ones who can take lead and provide a rational alternative based on principles of liberty. So I think the fact that you have been so forthright and so aggressive, for lack of a better word, has been absolutely awesome. Were you nervous? Because you're obviously not a doctor, you know, Joe Biden. Were you nervous? And you never will be.
That's for sure.
Get that idea out of your head. Although, to be fair, at some point you might be changing Big J's diapers. So maybe there's a little Venn diagram there. I mean, I love you, Jay. Were you nervous? I mean, this is kind of a stupid question, but like, is there a party that's like, wait a minute, this is such a complex issue. Even doctors disagree. Like, I got to be careful not to stick my foot in my mouth because they're going to look for the slightest little thing I say to be like, look, this guy's an ass. He has nobody he's talking about. You know, you and I discussed on this show previously, like when you'd be on CNN and you'd be talking to S.C. Cupp about the Middle East. And she's like, okay, let's pretend I don't know anything. I've got comic Dave Smith on one hand, and then I have like the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the other. Who would you pick? And you're like, yeah, that's a very rational choice. If someone doesn't know, go with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So sure. I'll leave the floor up to you and your thoughts on everything I just said.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you to your not to you because you're too good to listen to the episode, but to your people who said I did a good job.
Don't address the audience.
Well, you brought them up.
I know, and now I'm putting them back in the sewer where they belong. Just absolute garbage people.
You know, the way I make that work in my mind is that what I try to do, and I'm very careful about this, is that I don't speak out of my ass about the stuff that I don't really understand. And so I can read, you know, different epidemiologists who have different, you know, containment strategies. And I can say, now I'm not going to sit there and pretend that I have some expertise in this and say like, well, this doctor is right and this doctor is wrong, just because I may like one more than the other. So what I've learned to do is what you can do is talk about what you know and really hone in on that. So what I will do is that if I'm reading epidemiologists who say Fauci's crazy and all of these strategies that he's proposing are nuts, and then you hear the Fauci supporters say all of the scientists agree, I can say, no, that's bullshit. There are other experts who disagree with this, and here's their argument. And so what I really focused on on the Rogan episode was just like, look, I'm not even going to get into the debates about the science of all of it. I'm talking about the naked government authoritarianism of it. And that's something we should all be really concerned about. And so I said, like, at one point in the show, I said, look, even if you think every last one of these totalitarian measures was warranted by the threat of the virus, you still have to be concerned about the fact that we just instituted totalitarianism for a year in the United States of America. And the analogy that I gave, what people were making fun of me for, because I'm not very good at analogies, but I was like, if a snake jumps out of the water onto your boat, which I guess they don't really do that, but it's just a hypothetical. If a snake like jumps onto your boat and you shoot it because it's like this venomous snake, and you're like, well, now I got a hole in my boat. Now, you can still say we had to shoot the snake. There was no other option. But that doesn't mean you don't have to be concerned about your now sinking boat. And so even if you think we needed to give governors the power to repeal the Bill of Rights, you can still say, oh, shit, we just kind of lost the Bill of Rights, or what, you know what I mean? So what I try to do is just really focus on the issues that I know what I'm talking about on. And I think aside from that, one of the reasons why I think people really responded well to this last appearance was that I really made a point to focus on the big issues that are like the major crises facing the country, and how essentially libertarianism or anarchists understand why all of these issues are so bad. And we basically have the answers to them. And I think that was more, it's more the Ron Paul style than the Ayn Rand style. Whereas like Ayn Rand insists that you accept this entire philosophy, and that that philosophy itself has to be the reason you accept this entire philosophy. Like, you couldn't even agree with everything objectivists believe for some other reason. You have to agree with it for the right reasons, and you have to accept all of it. And that's, I mean, God bless her, she was able to sell that to a lot of people, but that's a really tough sell. But what Ron Paul was more toward doing was saying, look, here are the major crises that are destroying the country right now. Let me explain what caused them. Let me explain what can solve them. And like it or not, you have to admit that is an argument that needs to be dealt with. So I really just focused on that. And I think that, it's very like, I've seen other people go on Rogan's show and try to like sell him on really like random little things about how the government shouldn't do this or that or that. And it's like, listen, man, if you're taking something that I had to read about for 2 years before I was sold on it, I'm probably not going to sell somebody on that in a one conversation. So let me just focus on the big issues. And I think we were able, I was able to do that.
As a zoology person, let me defend your snake metaphor. Ooh. First of all, it's absolutely not at all impossible that a venomous snake would fall into a boat. Maybe it wouldn't jump from the water. Like anacondas are waterborne, but they're not venomous. But there's certainly many tree snakes which are extremely venomous to the point where they could kill a person, and they can fall into a boat very easily. So that anyone who's saying that can never happen doesn't have to jump from the water. It could just jump from a tree that's overhanging the boat, or a ship, whatever they want to call it. I don't know the difference there. Go. So they're full of it. And I'm also very impressed, and I'm going to get fully pedantic for people to become more educated. I'm impressed that you said venomous instead of poisonous, because venomous is something that is injected into you, whereas poisonous is something that you eat. So a venomous snake will be edible, whereas a poisonous animal is inedible because it will cause you suffering. So venomous is correct here, and they're not So you were right on every level. I
easily could have gotten that wrong.
Yeah, but you didn't. And the point is, anyone giving you crap is like when the people were laughing at Trump saying coyotes were bringing over like kids from Mexico, and they're just like, oh, it's like, no, that's it. It's a term. Like, you heard of the term drug mule. They're not literally like opening up a mule, putting drugs in its stomach and getting it across the border. So that analogy is perfect. Maybe it's not accurate in terms of shooting a boat. I'm not a boatsman. I like to be on dry land. So this is something else that I was very excited and gladdened to hear about. God forbid I get the heads up. You are toying with the idea of running for the Libertarian Party nomination.
What's funny is that I did mean to speak with you about this, like privately, and I wasn't planning. I noticed you look down and to the left, which is a sign of deception. Oh, that is a classic tale of deception. No, Tom Woods is holding up a little sign right here. I just read it. He goes, just tell him you were going to. Okay, all right, I'll tell him. Sorry, so it's not a
For
lie. I
those
was
who
just
don't
looking.
know, Tom Woods is this very failed podcast you probably have never heard of. So you can waste your time Googling him, but there's no information about it. And all of it out there is free and worthless.
You can't find it anywhere. He's
useless.
If you Google Tom Woods and you find someone, that's not the guy we're talking about. Yeah. That's probably some other right. Tom Woods. It's a common name. No, I mean, I wasn't even planning on saying this, but it just kind of came up, and so I did. But I've been giving it a fair amount of consideration. And if nothing else, just because it's like I know how to explain this libertarian shit, and everybody's always so frustrated that the Libertarian Party candidate doesn't do that. And so I've been convinced by enough people that it's like, yeah, I think that like if I were to do this, I think I could do a really good job of explaining this stuff and generate a lot of excitement. And it's just, it bothers me that, you know, the Libertarian Party, which is the party of Harry Brown and Ron Paul and just these great messengers.
That's the slogan.
Yes. And these great messengers of that, you know, and like, I'll see these people like Tim Pool likes to share this a lot, but it's a meme for a reason, and he's not wrong to share it.
Yeah,
but it's that meme of libertarian ideas, libertarian candidates, and there's something about that. Like,
and the meme is, by the way, it's like Star Fox, and then it's like a rotten stuffed animal sitting on the bench. Yeah.
Yes. And for people, and okay, like obviously objectivism is its own thing, but for people who are like, you know, influenced by Rand and, you know, like for people who are influenced by Ron Paul or for people from like the Harry Brown people, none of us ever felt that way. None of us were ever like, oh, these ideas are great, but this messenger is just so terrible.
Even Bill Barr or Bob Barr, I keep forgetting, the congressman, he wasn't horrible.
Well, these messengers were fantastic. They were great at spreading the message. I mean, go even like, you know, like Milton Friedman on Donahue or Ayn Rand on Donahue. There was no part of you that was like, oh, I mean, the ideas are good, but this person's just doing such a bad job. Like you were like, no, that person is kicking ass right now. Thank God they're the one up there doing it. And so that just bugs me when I see that. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. There's no reason why the Libertarian Party, that has by far the best platform of any political party in the United States of America, is seen as a joke. It shouldn't be.
That's why we need a comedian as the candidate.
Ironically, yes.
An ironic comedian who has no punchlines. You're modern day Hannah Gatsby.
Punchlines are old.
What is this? What, a 20th century punchlines?
Yeah,
this is the part of the future. By the way, I will say with a straight face that I think the greatest moment of libertarian history is when Ayn Rand was on Donahue and she was asked by an audience member if Atlas Shrugged was written by the Illuminati. The fact that happened, I am like, all right, yeah, check, please. I'm done. Nothing will ever top this. So let me ask you a few questions about this, this situation. I don't understand, and I'm being quite literal, how a system, and walk us through this, how a system that led to Joe Jorgensen being the nominee, and this is not to have any disrespect for Joe Jorgensen, but I've been in this scene for a very long time. I had never heard of her before. And if I haven't heard of someone who's like a figure in this scene and they can get the nomination, that is telling me there's some weird Venn diagram here going on that I don't know about. So how is it a system where Joe Jorgensen is the output candidate would also be can be used to end up with Dave Smith? That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Well, what happened with Joe Jorgensen was that she got the Prague caucus behind her. So she got one of the three big caucuses in the party. Can you walk us
through what those caucuses are?
The three big caucuses. I mean, there's a few other ones, but it's the Mises Caucus, the Prague Caucus, and the Radical Caucus.
Wait, they call themselves the Prague Caucus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
Wait. Are you serious?
Yeah, the pragmatists.
This causes me physical pain.
Yeah, but
why would you be a pragmatist and be a member of a third party?
Well, okay, so from there, I'll defend them a little bit on this, right? Is that they're not. There is a difference between pragmatism and being a moderate. Okay. Right. So like you could be a pragmatist and not be a moderate.
Sure.
You could, and so I think what they would say is that they're like, look, we're a political party. The goal is to get people elected. We want to find the people who are the most electable, find the races that are winnable and attack those. And that's what they're there for.
I found the racists. I'm looking at them right now.
Yeah, there you go. But so, so that's what they go. Yes, the race is. I'm sorry. Yes, I know. This is why the pragmatists don't support me yet. But so to me, I look at it and I actually think that there's a very strong pragmatic argument on a national level or on a presidential campaign to run the most radical candidate that you could find, right? Because it's not like, pragmatically speaking, it's not as if, if you're down 7 touchdowns with 2 minutes to go and you're like, someone is like, okay, I want to throw a Hail Mary and go for a quick touchdown. And then we got to have an onside kick and like 10 more things have to happen for us to win. And someone goes, let's be pragmatic and just run the football. You're like, well, that's not pragmatic. That's suicide. Like, so the pragmatic thing is to go for it. And if
I was just going to say, and Donald Trump, not in his policies, but in his rhetoric, was one of the most radical candidates we've had in decades. No one had ever heard anything like it. No one knew, even his allies were like, what the F is this guy going to say tomorrow? Like, what do I have to wake up and defend?
That's right. And all of the Frank Luntz supposed experts would have told him at every single turn that this is going to blow the whole thing for you. You can't say John McCain isn't a hero. You can't do this or that. And yet at every single turn, it worked out for him. I think I've mentioned this on either my show or your show with one of our crossover episodes before, but there's these great videos that you can find. They're still up on YouTube, where there's just like a compilation of the media responding to the South Carolina Republican primary debate, where Donald Trump stood up in South Carolina the day before the primary, and he said to Jeb Bush to his face that your brother lied us into the war in Iraq, that they knew there were no weapons of mass destruction and they wanted that war, so they lied to the American people, which really is flat out calling George W. Bush a war criminal. I mean, this isn't just like, oh, you messed everything up. You lied. He knew and lied. And there's just this compilation of all the media establishment people, all the Fox News people, all the CNN people, that's it. He's done. Sorry, buddy, but this is the South Carolina Republican primary. You can't go in there and insult the military. And look, he was winning and he just blew the whole thing by that. Then the next day, Donald Trump took 60% of the vote, and the other 12 candidates split the 40% amongst them. So there is a strong case to be made, but particularly for the Libertarian Party. I mean, if you're talking about winning, which, let's be frank, is a long shot, if you're talking about going from 1% to like 40% or whatever you would need to win, that's not going to happen because you just played it safe. Or because you try, well, let's get the guy who's not gonna, have any unforced errors or something like that. If you're ever going to get to that point where the Libertarian Party candidate wins the presidency, that's going to be because tens of millions of Americans, their views on politics were radically jolted into a whole new, way of looking at the world. Now, I'm not at all suggesting like that this is a likelihood. I mean, I think that's a very, that's a real long shot. But if that is a long shot one way or the other, I think what you have to ask yourself, like, well, what can we achieve in a presidential race? And to me, what can be achieved is that you can maybe not jolt that many people into a whole new way of looking at the world, but you certainly can jolt a lot. And to me, that's what, the value of Ayn Rand going on Donahue, or the value of the Ron Paul campaigns is that it was a megaphone to reach a lot of people who have really never heard ideas like this before. And there's still a lot of those out there. Sometimes it's easy for people like me and you to lose touch of that because we live in this world so much. But there's still a lot of people. I remember you talking to me about that when you were writing your last book, and I'm sure you have the same feelings writing this next one.
Oh, can I tell you? I have to interrupt you because this is important.
Sure.
The Anarchist Handbook is going to Amazon today.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm going to have the proof copies hopefully this week, so it's done.
Oh, awesome.
So you're the first person I'm telling, and the audience.
That's incredible. But I know you get this feeling, because I remember you talking to me about it with the last one, where it's like you get this feeling like there will be somebody who
Yes.
opens this book, who has never, you know what I mean, like thought of things this way before, who's being introduced to these ideas for the first time. And it's probably even more so true with the Anarchist book, where it's really, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and there's something really beautiful about that you could kind of be that, you know, gateway for that person.
I got to tell you, you just really kind of hit me right in the feels, because, you know, I didn't think about it in those terms. I'm thinking so much, let's get this book out. There's such a need for it. But to realize, and this is just stupid that I didn't think in these terms because I've been just so laser focused, that I'm going to be the guy for many people, even if it's 1,000, who introduces them to Lysander Spooner.
Yeah.
Like, that is really a great thing, because I'm sure you remember, and I remember when you read that, and the fact that it's so old, you're like, how have I never heard about this? And also it's like it's like in the cartoon when you're hit with a cannonball and your shoes get knocked out and your socks get knocked out. It just, like, that was the book that turned Tom Woods, the essay that turned Tom Woods from like a neocon-ish or whatever, like conservative, to an anarchist. He was just like, I can't argue with this, because as you were saying with Scott, I said an earlier show with Scott Horton, you're attacking the right from the right. So if you're taking a more pro-liberty approach than the Constitution, they're completely disarmed.
Yeah. Like that, when you argue, you know, to someone like Tom, who's like a very conservative kind of right wing, you know, guy, and then you argue that actually the Constitution was an illegitimate revolution, you know, a coup against the existing order. Like, that's a really hard, like, because nobody's ever making that argument. And so, and there's something really beautiful about being able to like expose more people to that stuff. And so
I'm also excited because the ANCOMs are going to get really annoyed that I've got like Rothbard and Benjamin Tucker, just to a lesser extent, and Spooner in there. But it's also, I think some of them are going to be brought over, because a lot of their arguments to me are just not persuasive. And I'm not doing the work, but maybe Murray Rothbard will. Tell me about that third caucus, the Radical Caucus in the Libertarian Party.
The Radical Caucus is they ended up supporting Vermin Supreme, I believe, in this last year, and they're kind of like they're a mix of like I mean, there's a lot of Rothbardians in there. There's a lot. They're not, you know, they're not moderates. They're all radical. I think some of them lean a little bit left, but not all of them. And they're more, you know, I know some of the members. I don't know the entire caucus that well, but I think that they're certainly more willing to be on the like, well, let's just make a huge like spectacle statement out of the Libertarian Party. They're not the ones who are pushing to like, let's get someone who, you know, has some years as a governor or something like that.
And you promise me that if you are elected president, you will deport Luis J. Gomez, the Puerto Rican rattlesnake, to Mexico.
Yeah. Mexico might be too good for him. I'll be honest.
I'm not as moderate. I'll be the Romney conservative. Let's have a moderate answer.
I'm thinking Honduras.
Okay.
Maybe El Salvador. I don't know. Just let him. He's going to be starting over from scratch. But I will be drafting you, willingly or unwillingly, to be my press secretary. I just want you just nuking the corporate press every day. I literally think that's the perfect role for you.
It is. So
can you imagine? All right, obviously this is all fantasy land.
I don't have to imagine.
Just like some lady from CNN.
And I would say, would you have? I already thought about this. It would be, would you have the same political beliefs that you do if you were more conventionally attractive? I certainly weren't if I weren't this ugly. And then what's she gonna do? It's way ahead of you. Way ahead of you. This is my DNA.
Oh my God. It'd just be perfect.
We would have, I already know what my price would be, and we'll have to talk, because it wouldn't come from you. It'd have to come from the audience.
Oh no, this is taxpayer money, baby. You can have whatever you want.
No. What do you mean taxpayer money?
Oh, I thought you were talking about press secretary. Okay, I'm sorry. What would your price be? I was talking about
during you mean campaign, or you mean during this?
I was just joking around. I thought you were saying as president when you were talking about deporting Lewis. I can't deport Lewis just if I'm running.
No, but if elected.
Okay, hold on. So now go back to what you were saying. You were saying if I'm campaigning and you have a price to be what? To be the spokesman?
Yeah, the campaign needs a spokesman. That's who becomes the press secretary.
Okay. That's fair. That's true. Right. So, okay, so you have a price.
Oh, yes.
That we
You
have
want me
to
to tell you
raise.
now?
It's up to you.
Okay, so this is what would have to happen. I will only get paid in Bitcoin or Ether, and I have to get paid 1 Bitcoin a month or the 20 Ether. It's not coming out of your pocket, and I'll have public wallets. I'm sure there's people out there with 30 Bitcoin between them who can make this happen.
Right.
I will hodl the money until the election day, and the only time I would take it out is if to help me move to Austin, which is going to happen. So those are my rules.
When are you moving to Austin?
Sooner rather than later. But
Okay.
I reached that decision because I found out you can get townhouses there, which as a New Yorker was always the dream of living in a townhouse and
Right.
having stairs in your house, and not in the hallway, but in your apartment.
I told Rogan you were thinking of moving there. He seemed very excited.
Yeah, my whole crew's there. We're gonna call. There's a neighborhood. My friend just moved there. They're a block away from Lex Friedman now. We're gonna call it. Wait, I got to get it right. Williamsburg West.
Ah, that's not bad.
It'd be
There
nice
you
and
go.
insufferable, just like me. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and they were telling me that state convention by state convention, all the energy is with the Mises Caucus people. That every convention that's happened, they've completely taken it over effortlessly. And I have to tell you, a lot of them, all of them, well, no, there's a few exceptions, but who've been blocked on Twitter, are huge fans of both of ours. I've been really impressed with these kids as people.
Yeah.
Because sure, they're all like 11 out of 10 on the spectrum, but in terms of having the knowledge, in terms of being able to articulate ideas, in terms of having the passion, in terms of being excited, in terms of having a sense of humor. Like if you have a list of who do I want as my team to get someone elected, they check them all off except for diversity, but that's okay. Here's my question for you, and I'm dead serious, because you and I both know the cathedral wants genocide if it can get away with it. There's nothing you can put past these people. So I already know what the articles are going to be. I'm thinking like a press person, which is, this is where the angry white men of the Trump candidates went. They're going to have a picture of Charlottesville, and they're going to be like, look, Dave Smith is the voice of the Groypers. He's the voice of the white nationalists. I mean, these articles, as soon as you get any traction, these articles are going to hit. How do you anticipate handling that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what you have to do is you have to be able to effortlessly take those hits and just dismiss all of them and laugh it off while you're dismissing all of them. And to be like, well, listen, I mean, if you're going to say that we're these horrible racist right wingers, why is it that we oppose all of the policies that have destroyed black neighborhoods? Why is it that we oppose the genocides happening in the Middle East to poor brown people in third world countries, which you guys are completely okay with? So what do you really have on us? That we've talked to the wrong people or that I've made the wrong jokes on a podcast? We're here to end the genocides. How do you feel about that? And I think that honestly, if you play it right, they really hand you an opportunity when they call you all of these things to really point back. You go like, okay, so who's done more damage to the black community? The dumbasses in Charlottesville or Joe Biden, the architect of the war on drugs?
Folks, today's episode is brought to you by Sheath Underwear. They make the most comfortable boxer briefs I've ever worn. I am wearing them now, and that's all I'm wearing during this episode with comic Dave Smith. If you're sick of boxers that are too loose or briefs that are too tight, Sheath is for you. Here's what you do. You go to sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice20. You get 20% off your order. Here's why it's great. They support the network. They support me. They support Lewis. Fine. You get a product that is awesome because Sheath has this dual pouch technology for both parts of your male anatomy. And when you put it on, you're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I can get into this. And that's why I wear Sheath all the time. It's the kind of small, independent, creative business that I am happy to wear and support. If you go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice20, you get 20% off your order. They've got new materials. They've got mesh ones, which really give you a nice breeze, if you know what I'm saying, and bamboo. They have not sent me the bamboo underwear. I'm going to have to talk to the manager. Let's get back to the show.
Oh, here's another great one. Which of us is going to abolish the police which are terrorizing these neighborhoods, according to your articles? It's us. It's not you. It's not your people.
Well, listen,
We'll have a cop as VP. Oink, oink.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it makes it's fairly straightforward. And the truth is that the policies that actually screw over black people in America are the biggest ones are like you said, the cops, the war on drugs, the Federal Reserve System,
public housing,
public education. You know what I mean? And also the military industrial complex, which goes around and sucks up a bunch of these young men into the worst situation you could imagine being in and destroys so many lives that way. And we oppose all of it.
Do you know what's insane? Is that I just posited an article, which would be inevitable if there was some kind of traction with this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And within literally seconds, we already have a press release response that would just kick that reporter on their ass. And
this is just us spitballing in 10 seconds. It's not even us putting like the real, okay, let's sit down and really make this perfect. And the reality is that these things are, they're fairly easy to slap down. You know what I mean? Like, because, and a lot of times when they will, and this is, you know, this goes to like, kind of the point I was making the other day when I was channeling.
I got to interrupt you because
Sure.
I already know what we would do. It'd be like the New York Times, which has a history of being sued for racist practices, has accused, Here are the facts. There you go. And that's how you open it.
Yeah. Oh, no, it'd be beautiful. Yeah, we got to get you that Bitcoin a month. You're going to be really good at this job. And I will have
those addresses public so people can check on it.
Yeah, it's just, but you know, a lot of, so this is the other episode, one of the last ones that we were doing together. I was channeling what Curtis Yarvin said, which I think was a really good point that he made when he said, you know, a lot of people who are rejecting or who are reactionary against the cathedral, you know, and the cathedral will say, well, basically, if you don't think everything that's happened over the last 100 years is just pure progress, and then you're a Nazi, and they'll go, all right, fuck it, then I'm a Nazi. And you're like, the problem there is that you're not really rejecting their paradigm. You're accepting it. You're still letting them define you. Yeah. And so the problem is, and not short of Nazi, you know what I mean? But the problem is with a lot of these people, when the New York Times will criticize Trump supporters, or certainly the alt-right or the Groypers or people like that, you're already playing into their hands because you have become what they say the enemy is. Yeah. And we're really not that. So we can attack it from a whole different angle and be like, no, this doesn't make any sense because we're outside of your entire paradigm. And that can, you know, and like, that's kind of, I think, what we were just getting at in the last few minutes, that it's very easy to be like, no, motherfucker, I'm not law and order Republican. You're law and order Democrats. That's who you are. That's who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are. If that's the enemy, then the enemy is you.
Kamala Harris is Rudy Giuliani in a what do you call this, Converse, in a pair of Converse. That's the line.
That's
and let them try to argue with that. It's true.
Yeah,
she was worse than him. This is why he wasn't big on locking up drug people, in my understanding.
Right. Well, he was pretty bad on it. But regardless of that, Kamala Harris, there's a reason why Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her presidential campaign. She just turned it around and it was like, people were like, oh yeah, they're very weak on that line of attack. You know, like you attack them from the left and they're like fall to pieces.
There's a great, oh God, you know, my favorite video or commercial, and people can look it up online. It came out of the Ron Paul campaign, I guess, during 2012. And it was totally out of character for Ron Paul because it was a complete hit. Oh, do you need to take that call?
No call. I'm putting a vape cartridge in my vape. No calls, no more calls ever again.
That was so funny.
Thanks for cutting that out, Dick.
Did you see Dave Rubin saw it?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
That's fucked up.
Oh yeah. No, I did see that. And then someone said a thing the other day where they just had the little picture of my face on the phone. And it was like, "Hello, base department" or something. I forget what it was responding to. This just really made me laugh.
Fuck, I forgot. I forgot completely what. I completely forgot what we were just talking about.
The Ron Paul commercial.
Oh yeah, and he had this attack ad against Gingrich. Mm-hmm. And you watch it, and this is one of the most effective attack ads you've ever seen. And it starts off with a clip of Gingrich saying, we need a candidate who's like smart, honest, and hardworking, whatever the three things were. And it just clips, goes smart. And it just has showing what a moron he is, honest, a bunch of clips showing what a liar he is, hardworking, showing what lazy he is. And you're sitting there and Ron Paul's the nicest guy ever. And it's like, stop, he's already dead.
Yeah.
So all that would have to happen is headlines punctuated by Kamala Harris is laughing for no reason in the middle of a sentence. And you watch it and it's that they live moment where it's not like, oh, this person's wrong, I disagree, whatever. It's like, oh, this is literally a psychopath or someone who at least is acting in completely ways foreign to my understanding of normal human behavior and thinking. Yeah. And that kind of stuff goes very viral because what Trump did very well is he denigrated these horrible people to their face. And people across both parties and independents, there is an enormous amount, and this is America at its best, of extreme contempt for those who hold power. And even if you think, okay, they're better than us by some metric, you're still not a royalty. You're still an aristocracy. I'll respect you. I'll call you Mr. Gates, Mr. Jobs, but I'm not going to genuflect before you and be like, oh my God, I'm so in awe that I'm in the same country as you. That's not America.
There's always been a really healthy amount of skepticism for the political and media elites in America, like all the way from the very beginning. It's part of the reason why we're such a successful country.
Jefferson was talking about this.
Yes, like from the very beginning.
Just for the audience, I know you know this, Dave. For a long time, being a journalist was one step away from being like a prostitute. Yeah. Like it was really regarded as this trashy, and that's not to disrespect prostitutes, but in terms of like, if you tell your mom what you do for a living, but being a journalist was really this grubby kind of low class job. That was
which it still is. It's just,
now, right. But now it's like, oh, I went to college, I'm all erudite. But this, for a very long time, these were not regarded as, they were all regarded as correctly, as they still are, as yellow journalists. Like they're propagandists. And that, when it's honest, I have no problem with that. Like we're the Democratic Party newspaper. We're putting forth Democratic ideas. We're going to tell you the Republicans are evil and rapists. They're right. And the Republican newspaper will say the same thing. They'll be right too.
Yeah, well, that's why I have so much more contempt, as I'm sure you do too, for the New York Times than for Sean Hannity. Because at least Sean Hannity, you're like, look, he's like, hey, I'm a Republican Trump supporter. Yeah. And here's why I hate the Democrats. And you're kind of like, okay, at least he's not, you know what I mean? There's no blatant deception in that. I mean, he may get some things wrong.
Sean Hannity isn't trying to get public schools to teach his dopey books, unlike the 1619 Project, which is why is a newspaper rewriting history.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. Now, if the New York Times were to come out and say, listen, we are progressive activists, I think me and you would have a lot more respect for them. It's like, okay, so then just admit what you are, because you are
like
that.
Mother Jones. Neither of us have a problem with Mother Jones.
That's right. You just don't end up like, because at least they are what they are. And the same with MSNBC to some degree. They are, everyone knows what they are. It's part of the reason, as we said, why Trump supporters hated CNN so much more than MSNBC, and rightfully so. But I think on top of the anti-elitist mentality that Americans have always had, I really do think there's something that's much more intense about it, these days. And I think a big part of that is that a lot of people, both left and right, they smell what is obvious. Yeah. Which is whether or not you don't have to be a libertarian anarchist to realize that so just look at the 21st century and look at what was inherited and what's been done with this country. I mean, literally, we're the most successful country by far in the history of the world. And they have, just blown everything. Okay, I guess not everything. We're not in rubble yet. But like the idea that they've done nothing but hand the American people disastrous wars, a completely rigged economy. We had the worst recession since the Great Depression in 2008, and then just got hit with what's going to end up being a harder one over the last year. So you have the two worst recessions since the Great Depression, 5 wars that are disasters, and a ruling elite that is mocking and lecturing the entire working class.
And you know what? Even if those wars were won, they'd still be disasters.
Yeah.
Because a war is a disaster. It's a man-made humanitarian crisis. Other than maybe the Kuwait, where everyone just gave up. Like that's the idea of at its best, possibly. But still, it's just like that's what war means. You're killing lots of people. You're blowing.
Yes. I would say yes, but right. So yes, but at least if there's something to show at the end of it, you can create a story that, well, you were a hero for creating this. You were a hero because at one point Germany was the Nazis and now it's not. At one point Japan was this awful imperialist nightmare and now it's not. So you're heroic for dying that war. But when the deal is like, oh, you shot up a bunch of goat herders in Afghanistan, all in the name of getting rid of the Taliban, and now we're going to cut a deal with the Taliban, who control more territory than they did when we started this war. It's just, you were just resisted, and this is why the suicide rates were so much higher after Vietnam than after World War II. It's not that it's not that the fighting was more brutal. It was brutal in both. It's just that there's no narrative where you're the good guy here.
Yeah. Are you surprised at how motivated? This sounds like such a gimme question, but I'm sorry, it's where my mind is going. But by how motivated all of these Mises Caucus people are and like coming out of the woodwork, I'm kind of surprised in a very positive way.
Yes, but how do I say this? I was surprised that they weren't here sooner.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm surprised now that they are here, but it's almost kind of like, okay, there they are. I mean, what I remember, like in the years after the Ron Paul campaigns, I was like, where the hell is everybody? Like, where are the great new libertarian leaders rising up? How is it just me? Like who the fuck? Whereas I saw this, I saw 20,000 young people screaming "End the Fed" at every stop Ron Paul went to. So where the hell are these people? And then it was like Michael Heiss and the Mises Caucus, they started organizing, and it was like, oh, there they are. There they all are. They just needed like something to rally around. And that's to me, there's a reason why the Mises Caucus has all the energy at these state conventions and why these people are like really great champions for the message and all the stuff you were saying before. It's that like we are the Ron Paul army. We are all the guys who were introduced to these ideas by his campaign. And they finally, had someone who was like, hey, this is our new home. This is what we're doing here. And everybody flooded in.
Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Blue Block's blue light glasses. If you're looking at computer screens all day, you feel terrible, you think you're overworked? No, it's blue light damage. What Blue Blocks did, BLUBLOX, they created these incredible blue light glasses that block that blue light coming off your screen that causes eye strain, so you can relax when you get home. Here's what's great about BLUBLOX.com glasses. 40 frames to choose from. Prescription, non-prescription, readers, frames for every need, but for every pair you buy, they donate a pair of reading glasses to someone who needs them. If you go to BLUBLOX, blueblocks.com/you're welcome, or enter the code welcome at checkout, you get 15% off of your order. It'll help you sleep. It'll stop you from getting headaches. You'll feel more energetic. And then maybe you won't be such a loser who listens to this terrible show. Come on, guys, let's get it together. And let's get back to Dave Smith.
So here are two other potential candidates. Spike Cohen, who is the VP of Joe Jorgensen on that ticket. That would be a natural person to run for the presidency next time. Have you spoken to him? What are your feelings toward him? I know he's been on your show.
Yeah, I had him on my show once during the campaign, and then I had him on my show a couple months ago. And me and Spike message back and forth occasionally. We're not close, but we, we're friendly, and we communicate from time to time. And I actually, as I've said publicly before, I think Spike has been doing a really great job since the campaign. Particularly, I think he's been really great. His messaging has been on point. I really like his appearances on Kennedy and stuff. Like I've shared a bunch of clips of his where I was just like, God damn, he said it perfectly. Like, right, what should be said it perfectly. And so I like Spike a lot. I don't really have any other thoughts on it other than that. I think he's good.
Let's talk about another potential candidate who was the highest ranking libertarian ever in office, which is Justin Hamash. He actually had me he's teaching a class or something at University of Chicago. He had me speak to them over Zoom, and it was off the record. The first thing I said to him was, my goal today is to make you regret this decision. And he tweeted that he did not. So I guess I'm getting weak in my old age. Do you have any idea if because he decided against running in 2020 when I think the nomination would have been his for the asking. Do you have any idea of whether he intends to seek the nomination? Have you been in contact with him?
No, I don't. Me and him have messaged back and forth a few times. He messaged me after my last appearance on Rogan and said he watched it and enjoyed it. And I've given him some praise at times when I felt like he's done some good things. And I think he's one of the greatest congressmen to ever live, which is, like easily one of the greatest congressmen to ever live. I don't know. I don't know if he'll run or not. I'm really not sure what, I don't know him well enough to know like what his plans are. I think that you're wrong that the nomination was his for the taking. Really? I think he would have had a real fight on his hands for it in 2020, and perhaps that's part of why he didn't. He formed an exploratory committee, did one of the debates, and then decided he didn't want to pursue it.
I would think that he runs the table when it comes to Jorgensen. Like there's nothing she's better than him on.
He would have, I think, certainly taken the pragmatic caucus's support. That's my guess. And probably would have bumped Jorgensen out of that slot. But the Jacob Hornberger people were really, really passionate, and I don't think that they would have easily supported him. And I think the Vermin Supreme people too. I think there was a lot of reaction against the 2016 campaign of Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, and to go like, to have another politician who's a former Republican. I think there would have been a lot of hesitancy too. Not to say he couldn't have won the nomination,
sure.
But that it wouldn't have been like a cakewalk. He would have had to fight for it. I don't know why he decided not to continue. I was very surprised. Like once nobody ever, I think I was actually joking about this on my podcast, and then I had to eat my words, but I go, why do they even form exploratory committees? Like just say you're running for president. Everyone who forms one ends up running for president. But I was like, I guess I'm wrong about that. He was really just exploring the possibility and decided against it. He's like, I explored and I don't like you kooky autists.
Now we know what if he runs against you, his campaign will be like, Jave Smith, wrong about Hamash, wrong about liberty. Hey, Justin, if you give me 1.5 Bitcoins a month, I will put this SOB in the ground where he belongs.
You're going to take the 1 Bitcoin from me and then also take the 1.5 from him and then just tank me.
Hey, Lincoln Chafee.
2 Bitcoins. Shit.
I saw a clip of yours making the rounds on Instagram, and you had endorsed Angela McArdle to be the party chair.
Yes.
When is that election? How does that election take place? And why do you think she would be the strongest candidate for the role? And what is that role? That's a lot on the table, but please.
Sure. So it's at the end of the year.
This calendar year, 2021.
Yes, I believe that's when the election takes place. I believe it's late 2021 and maybe October of this year. It's at the national convention. So to vote in that, you have to be a delegate. So you have to not only join the Libertarian Party, but you have to get involved with your state and you have to go become a delegate. The reason I support Angela is that, to me, I think the most important, I think personally that the most important thing the Libertarian Party does, and what the chair has control over it to a large degree, is the messaging. Okay. So you get to decide who's in charge of the Twitter account, who's in charge of the statements that go out, what we're going to be saying. And to me, that's what this whole thing is about. Like, I am, in my heart of hearts, as you are, I'm an anarchist. I don't really believe that there is a statist solution to the statist problem. But I do think that spreading ideas are very powerful and important. And to me, the Libertarian Party should not exist with the hopes of this fantasy that we are going to take control of all reins of the federal government and then piece by piece roll it back. Now, if you can win local elections and get people a little bit more freedom, that's fucking great. I mean, that's an unbelievable thing to do. I mean, if you can win some local election and get concealed carry, legalized in your, locality, that's incredible. You just got real freedom for some real people's lives. If you can
save lives.
Yes. If you can get pot decriminalized in your city or your state or something, I mean, anything like that is very important and should be done. But the Leviathan is the federal government, and that's the idea that we're going to fill up all of Congress and the presidency, and then take on the deep state, and then take on all this and claw back the biggest honeypot in the history of the world, probably pretty unlikely. But if you're going to be there, what's important is that your messaging is really waking people up and exposing these ideas. And that is Angela. Like, Angela's a badass libertarian, and she's really impressive. I mean, if you have a short conversation with her, you're like, wow, this lady is sharp, and she's completely uncompromising, totally radical in the best sense of the word. You know what I mean? And I just think the party would benefit so much to have her as the chair.
I'm just thinking about if I had that LP Twitter account, besides the season of poison that I promised to unleash earlier, it would be very easy and very healthy for this country to do everything in my power to turn conservatives against the Republican Party and turn leftists against the Democratic Party. And exactly, it would not be hard to do, because especially the Republican base, the amount of contempt they have towards the party, I think, is reaching nuclear levels. I don't know if you saw this. I'm always shocked when, despite how disproportionately enormous my ego is, I'm always shocked when I'm actually changing people's minds, because my mind doesn't really get changed that much. I pretty much know where I stand. So to see that happen, I'm like, oh crap! It's very jarring to me. Just this morning, someone showed a clip on YouTube of Tim Pool, who's got an enormous audience. I think he just broke 1 million subscribers on one of his challenges on YouTube. Congrats to you, Tim. And it just opens with him saying, I am in favor of abolishing the cops. So to have that and knowing this was me is like, holy crap. This is, you and I, in all seriousness, if this was 2 years ago and said, there is a possibility for either of us or both of us to open the people who are ostensibly on the right or law and order types against the police, it's like, because what it reminded me of is in the 60s when Ayn Rand had the Objectivist newsletter, and she was asked, what should objectivists do? We're not going to have laissez-faire capitalism tomorrow. The two issues she chose were being pro-choice, legalizing abortion, and the second one was repealing antitrust laws. And I'm like, you are, it's like, lady, I can't think of anything that would be a harder sell than the one law we need to repeal is what keeps ostensibly monopolies from running this country. It was like, damn, you are so. But to me, the idea of we're going to turn people against the police is sure you are, sweetheart. It's never going to happen. Right. So to see that happen at all, and obviously it's the cops' fault largely, and the fault of social and responsibility of social media. I'm still very taken aback to have had even a little bit to play with that part.
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept too, where you see you saw these people on the left who were pushing this defund the police thing, and then you saw a lot of people on the right initially reacting against it, and then understandably, sure. But then as you start to think through the implications of it, you just realize that there's actually a lot more for the right to really enjoy about this, and a lot more for the left to really be concerned about with all of this stuff. And you're kind of okay, so if there's riots going on that are, destroying private property, and we're a country with 400 million guns in it, how long you think that's going to continue? If the cops aren't prosecuting the people who defend their property with their guns, this will probably get cleaned up pretty quickly. And you start to realize every single one of these taxes and regulations, all of them need to be enforced somehow. So you're going to defund the enforcement mechanism? Okay, well, it's just, anyway, it's been really interesting to see how the left had to start walking that back and going, they gave it the believe all women treatment. We never meant
defund
the police.
We meant spend more money on college. It's that's not really synonymous at all.
Like, it's someone, I saw one of these blue check mark progressives who was saying that, he goes, what defund the police meant was explore alternative options, sometimes increasing the funding of police departments. And you're like, oh yeah, no, that's totally, yeah. I don't know, how would anyone be confused by that? But defund obviously means spend more money on them. That's English.
Okay, like, I always wonder, do you think this guy's believing his own bullshit, or this is just blatant propaganda and backpedaling?
Yeah, I have to lean toward the latter on that one. I mean, that one to me just seems too much
on the nose.
Yeah, but at the same time, never underestimate the human ability to sell yourself on your own bullshit. And humans are very capable of that.
And we are proof of this.
That's for damn sure.
I'm gonna run for president, and this is a good idea. I gotta tell you, in all seriousness, when I first heard this, I'm like, this is stupid. And then I'm like, it's not stupid. And here's why. Jesse Ventura is the model. There's two hurdles to get to, even just getting to 15%, which is not at all impossible, is already a huge revolution. Can you imagine if Ron Paul had been on any of those presidential debate stages, how wonderful that would be in terms of furthering the cause of liberty and many other things? Because at the very least, you're going to have those other two parties co-opting those ideas, because we don't want, Grandpa Ron to have these votes. So this is when Trump was campaigning and he was saying, I'm going to audit the Fed by executive order within 100 days. He doesn't know what the Fed is or what it does, but he's like, okay, this is what got the Ron Paul outsider vote. Someone's in my ear. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, you can really, control, you can force, it's like a two-prong attack, right? Like, you can introduce these ideas to a lot of other people and try to build up our numbers, which I really think is crucial. And I think that there's something me and you have discussed before, that one of the things that it's almost like being stuck in this democratic worldview, that people feel like we need to get 51%. And actually our goal is much more attainable than that. Like, we need a strong, 5 to 10% of the population who really believe in this stuff. And that can make all of the difference. So our goal is to build toward that. And then the secondary goal is to also, control the discussion as much as possible. So it's kind of like, hey, Democrats and Republicans, you guys want to talk about this, but we've decided we're talking about this.
Yeah, force them to fight on your field and force them to talk about things that the other party will never call them out on. Yeah, and that's going to make them very uncomfortable as individuals too.
And there's real easy ones. There's ones that are enormously popular, that we have super majorities of the American people on our side about. And that's, look, there's it's really something to see, right? So Joe Biden gave this State of the Union type-ish speech the other day, and he's talking about corporations paying their fair share and raising the corporate income tax, and that there are these loopholes and big corporations get out of it. We're coming off the year where more corporate welfare was given out than any year in human history. And he's talking about how he's going to close loopholes on the corporate income taxes. So there you see a very clear example, right? He wants to talk about corporate income taxes. He doesn't want to talk about corporate welfare because he just signed the biggest corporate welfare bill in the history of the country.
Amazing? Amazon, of all companies, they've got an account, I forgot what it's called, where it's just about being trolls or shit talkers, shit posters. And Biden was saying how, Amazon doesn't pay its fair share in federal taxes. And they go, this is how much we paid. We pay what we're supposed to. And you wrote those laws for 30 years. Well, so what are you talking about?
Right. But what we can do is almost say hey, listen, we're not talking about that. We're just not even talking about that. We're talking about corporate welfare. We're talking about you taking tax-paid dollars and giving them to giant corporations run by billionaires. And our position is no more corporate welfare.
We'd have to think of a better name for it, too. Because welfare has positive connotations for many people.
Yeah, well, you could say no more welfare for billionaires.
No. You're not hearing me. Welfare is good in many people's minds. So we would have to call it corporate something. Bailouts are, you're in a boat that you just shot because of the snake. You want to be bailing. We'll figure it out. The point is it has to be a toxic word.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It really resonates that these are corrupt people because welfare is like, I want some people to have welfare. If someone's hungry, I want them to have food. I don't really care.
No, I understand what you're saying.
So
yeah, it is a positive word, but I think throwing billionaires in there makes it a little bit more like, obviously they don't need it.
Sure, but it's not about they don't need it. It's just how evil it is.
Yeah,
if it was just like wasted money, I don't think I'd have anywhere near of an issue as much as this is money taken from
people who need it much
and
more.
who are all more creative and who are the ones who are driving and innovative. Steve Jobs, it's just an inversion of values. I mean, this is where the Randy to me comes out. It's not just that it's like bailing out, you're wasting the water. It's like, this is really perverted in its incentives and design. And this is not salvageable. It's not like, let's cut it by half. It's like, this is wrong on principle. The idea of a free country is you don't take money from everyone and give it to corporations who are people too, Mitt Romney. It makes no sense, and it's not who we are as human beings. Okay, I'm in my mode. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. But listen, if you're going to take this job, no trashing Mitt Romney. That's it.
I will be trashing him, and that we will be putting his body in the compost heap after. Did you see what happened to him in Utah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was great.
And Guy Benson was defending him. Or he was attacking the attackers. Let's be fair. I didn't see his tweet. And Molly Hemingway, who walks on water as far as I'm concerned, she hit him on Twitter. She goes, yeah, no, this is great. And I was just like, I love you so much. Dave, Mr. President, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this press conference?
My favorite part was you naming your price, 1 Bitcoin a month.
You are welcome.
Hey, folks, before we go, if you enjoy this podcast, you might enjoy some of the other podcasts available at gasdigitalnetwork.com. This week, we're highlighting Broad Topics, TOPIX, with hosts Kim Cogden and Alex Scarlato. Great girls. You can find the full catalog of episodes on demand at gasdigitalnetwork.com or catch the latest 15 anywhere you find podcasts. Here is a clip.
So we go to our
one last garage sale, and we kind of move out of the nicer neighborhood into like this little like trailer park area, which was so cute, and the energy there top notch. Everybody was it was a mobile home.
They were the happiest people I've ever seen in my dang life.
There's a difference between trailers and mobile homes, and I'll tell you, I've lived in both.
I don't know the difference. I'm sorry.
A mobile home is just a classier trailer park. It's for older people. Trailer parks are for meth addicts and people who got pregnant by their daddies at 11. And a mobile home is just people that want to save some money, live small, and buy a big camper.
No, these were like classy people. Those campers looked nice, all right? That looked like a expensive camper to me. Yeah. And we came upon this old lady having a garage sale. That like she was just starting to pack up a little bit.
When we got out, she was done.
Yeah, I guess so. Because we got out and she was like, take it all, please.
No, at first she started with the corner, remember?
Oh, that's right.
She wasn't sure.
Yeah. She was like, that stuff over there in the corner is going to Goodwill already. So if you want anything from that corner, you could just take it.
When I tell you I dove into that.
Alex dove. Kim had to sit down, like, take her fucking hat off for a second and get comfortable. You know, she sat on the grass.
You saw that breathing exercise? I had to stop and do that because I about passed out when she said that. All free corner.
Mind you, these things cost 25 cents a piece, but man, the way that she started loading buckets of this woman's things into a pickup truck to the point where I'm sitting in the back seat of this. Oh, she's gonna piss herself. Poor Kimmy. Literally, I'm sitting in the back of the pickup truck with things on top of me by the time we're leaving. That ain't neither here nor there, though. Kim was real excited when she saw those things. And she packed him in pretty much without looking at him. Like, we had to look at the whole haul later. But in the meantime, we're talking to this lady. Her name was Sue. I hear the toilet flush. I'm just trying to stretch till Kim makes it back here. Because I really want her to be here when we talk about Sue. I'm going to wear some of Sue's clothes on next week's podcast, first of all, when I'm back in New York. Okay. Remember when we met Sue?
I remember.
So
Sue.
she's the lady. She's the lady who was like, take that shit in the corner. I'm giving it to Goodwill already. And over the course of us shopping at her garage sale for like an hour or so, she let out a little more of her personality by the minute.
The more she told us, the more she gave us free shit, the more we had to know. It was the rule for taking her shit, is we have to have her story permanently ingrained in who we are as people. Listen, now we're going to start this. I wish that we could have like the story of Sue.
Frank, work on that.
The story of Sue. If you could have one cigarette, just go.
So she's like this petite old lady, right? She can't be taller than I guess she's like 5'7" or so, but she's so petite. She's wasted away.
She looks like Tan Mom.
Yeah, she's got white hair. She's really
got like a
old.
bowl cut, like a little bit of like a.
Yeah, like white hair, like really, really short, cute.
She's adorable.
She's adorable.
She's smoking a cigarette.
Raspy old voice.
She sounds like me now.
She sounds like the character that we'd been doing since before we met her.
Whatever we've been doing since we started this, that's Sue.
So, first of all, Kim knows me. She knew that I was like, not this lady had just bags of her clothes, and I was like, I'm not looking through this shit. This is fucking crazy.
How pro was I?
And Kim was like, you better look through those bags, all right? This is all free. And I opened up the bags. And it's like I was Sue in a different life. She wore the same perfect size as me. There's all of these like cool acid wash jeans and like dope shit from the 70s. She used to ride motorcycles, fucking cool hats and shit. All this stuff that I would buy fresh off the rack if I saw it, Sue was just giving me for free. It fits me like a fucking glove.
Every time we grabbed something, she'd thank us, and that's when I knew something was up.
And she kept, she was like, thank you. I'm telling you, the less money that goes to the fucking CEO of Goodwill, the better.
And I said, that's right, Sue. Do you want these bundt cake makers?
He said, he's been ripping us off for years, Sue. You want these?
Hey, Sue, what you got inside?
I know you said take it. I just want to double check.
I was doing that. I was going, are you sure this grandfather clock?
Are you sure we can?
Meanwhile, I'm in the corner firing up eBay like it's my job. I'm looking to. I've said this once or twice tonight. I'm looking through Sue's trinkets as if they were my own grandfather's.
But also, as Sue is watching me unbox her clothes with like the joy on my face, she's deciding that she's done with everything at her garage sale, and she's like, you know what? Fuck it. It's not just this corner. Everything here is free for you
Makes
guys.
the announcement mid us going through her trash, and we celebrate like the rats that we are.
We fucking dance.
We're like, thank you,
We
Sue.
dance like banshees about it.